Welcome to the People Dividend Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Horne, and today we're going to dive into the world of credibility, thought leadership, executive abundance. And our guest today is Mitchell Levy. He is a global leadership expert. He's a two-time TEDx speaker. He's an international best-selling author of over 60 books. He's dedicated his career to helping individuals and organizations unleash their full potential and becoming thought leaders in their own fields. Mitchell, I am so delighted you're here. Welcome to the show.
Mike, it's a pleasure. Thanks for having me. A nice intro.
Thank you so much. You've had an incredible career as a thought leader. I encourage all of my listeners, and you'll find that in the show notes for today, to visit Mitchell Levy's website, which he'll talk about. And with this fascinating career, I just wonder, as we start the podcast and we begin to dig in, what's been the most rewarding part of your journey so far?
I left Sun Microsystems. So Sun was the company that helped really define what the internet was, how to use it. And I left during the dot-com days in 1997. And I became an entrepreneur. And since then, I've created 20-ish businesses. I've sat on the board of a NASDAQ company. That was super rewarding. I've done a commencement speech at a university. That was really rewarding. I think if I'm in lots of the entrepreneurial outfits, some actually make it and fail horribly, and some are amazing, and both good and bad are rewarding because you learn something. And I'd say at this stage, what is most rewarding is I could say that I've hit all the items on my bucket list. And what most people will say is, well, why do you get more? And so you missed the point, right? The point in life is to go out and have some things that you really, really have to do. And then when you achieve it, you're like, man, I'm really happy. Now, happy means you have joy on the inside. Happiness is what exudes on the outside, but joy is what's on the inside. And I can continue to be a thought leader, to support others, to be a servant leader at the level that I need to. And what happens is, since I've hit my bucket list items, my expectations could be relatively small. And then when I hit one new milestone, oh my God, that's amazing. And it's not that I don't have large milestones. It's just I want to set expectations that I am not sitting there worried about, getting anxious. Being at the stage where you've hit your bucket list is a place where you can look at the world in a different light. And maybe that's the answer to your question.
Maybe about that concept in psychology around generativity, and such an important topic for leaders and organizations, particularly as one generation is exiting in a massive way, to think about how do you pass it on? How do you, now that you've achieved, how do you get out of the way and make room for others? And what is it about making room for others? And how do you equip yourself for that transition? And how do you equip others to make progress on that onward journey that is certainly filled with so much failure, and the success is sometimes few and far between? Mitchell Levy, part of the reason I was originally attracted to having you as a guest, and I thought our audience would certainly benefit from, was to deliver your expertise on credibility. Such an important topic in today's environment. What does it mean to be credible? What does it mean to have a credibility nation? And I'd like to understand, because you're working on some very new and exciting concepts, perhaps associated with this generativity phase that you're in. That's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the new stuff,
All right.
the new Mitchell Levy stuff, and that transition, because I'm sure credibility is a theme that sort of runs through that. But tell us about what you're working on now.
So there actually is two things which are foundational for me. One is credibility, which I've looked at my whole life. I will give you a quick definition of what credibility is. I've done a TEDx, and this could go in the notes. It's called "We Are Losing Our Humanity," and I'm tired of watching it happen. And that has over 500,000 views. And what happened, I interviewed 500 thought leaders on credibility, and it just completely transformed my mindset of who I am, how I show up, what I do on a day-to-day basis. And what I could say is credibility is the quality that you are trusted, known, and liked. And underneath that, there are 10 values. And so the one thing I'll share of all the values, there's only one value that's listed twice, and that's integrity. And integrity is specifically the reason it's listed twice is under being trusted, it's your external integrity. It's what you tell the world. Under being known, it's your internal integrity. And so whenever there's not congruence between the external and internal integrity, we often want to run. If you're meeting somebody and there's incongruence between external and internal, you want to, oh man, there's something wrong. The spidey senses go up. You want to run away. So why is it okay for CEOs and executives to say one thing but act a different way?
Mm-hmm.
It's not, by the way. So what happens is credibility is super important. And while I was doing the interviews, I learned something really vital. My superpower is clarity, and I've put out in the world something I call the CPOP, their customer point of possibilities. And it is a formula that any company or any human can articulate in less than 10 words where they are executing on their purpose. And so what happened is between 2019 and 2020, I interviewed 500 thought leaders. I then created a credibility business, nice 6-figure business for 3.5 years. It wasn't a change the world business. So I created a clarity certification program for a year. And then about a year ago, I got slapped on the side of the face by a friend of mine. And ultimately, what I learned from that experience was something really simple. He goes, so here's what he said. It's a guy by the name of Ken Cook. And Ken gives me a call and he goes, Mitchell, I know every living marketing legend alive today, and there's nobody who does clarity like you do. My head was really exploding. He goes, remind me how many people don't have it. So when I was doing the interviews, it was 98% of people don't have real clarity. He goes, I'm going to tell you something you're not going to like. Now, Mike, I couldn't imagine what it would be. And what I want you to imagine is a balloon. And if you have a balloon and you stick a pin in it, how quickly the balloon dissipates, because in 2 to 3 sentences, he stuck the pin in my balloon, right? So here's what he said. He goes, Mitchell, now this is from a marketing perspective. He goes, you're world class at something that 98% of your audience doesn't have. They don't have it because they either think they have it and they don't, or they don't think they need it. Either way, that number sucks. So he hit the balloon. It popped. He was right. He was absolutely right. Now, he gave me a gift right away, and then I got a second gift the following morning. I'm going to tell you what the second gift was. From every entrepreneurial perspective, from every company perspective, what's important is, and you know this marketing phrase, but I didn't actually practice it till a year ago, sell them what they want, deliver what they need. So in that morning when I woke up, I recognized that I had spent the last 5.5 years interviewing 500 thought leaders, running a credibility business, running a clarity business. I recognized that I was actually selling people what they need, because people absolutely need clarity and then credibility, because credibility is just a framework, a roadmap in which you're running your clarity. What I wasn't doing is selling them what they want. And that's when I started thinking about the gift he gave me. As he goes, Mitchell, look me in the eyes. Tell me what you could do for me this minute that'll put money in my pocket tomorrow. I go, executive presence. And he goes, got it. Right. And I started thinking about that. And now I have transformed that to a new phrase. It's called executive abundance. Can I tell you what it is?
Absolutely. Yes. I think many of us, I would encourage want an abundant lifestyle.
Well, yeah, it's interesting. Now, abundance doesn't mean you got a ton of money. Abundance means that it's not too dissimilar. Hit my bucket list item. I'm really happy. I still want to add value. Really happy, right? Like that's abundance, right? So abundance or executive abundance is bringing abundance to 5 stakeholder groups, not just one. I sat on the board of a public firm. What did we focus on? We focused on the investors. We focused on the shareholders, right? What happens when you do that is you lose touch with many of the other stakeholder groups. So let's talk about the others. One is the family and self. If you're running CHAR or if you're part of that organization, your employees have to have good family lives. They have to be healthy. If not, other problems creep into the workforce. That is the internal operating system of the person themselves. Now, of the company, the internal operating system is the employees. And it's important to treat the employees well. And if you look at the Gallup polls and the horrible employee engagement scores, HR is not doing a good job of that. Companies are not doing a good job of that. So if you take care of yourself and you take care of the employees, guess what? The employees will take care of the customers. How many bad customer sat scores are there in companies because that's where they don't spend the money? Now, by the way, if you do take care of your customers will take care of your investors. That's that stakeholder group. And of course, we all live in a much more global community. So the community is the fifth stakeholder group. And so that's what executive abundance is focusing on bringing abundance to all five stakeholder groups. So the first thing that I did once I realized that was going to be my new direction, called up one of my friends who was running a conference called the Purpose Summit. He goes, "Oh my God, I love that." He said, "Mitchell, you should actually do a keynote at the conference." Okay, that gave me 4 months to start thinking about the nomenclature and the flows and how things work. And I haven't mentioned yet, but I'm also getting a PhD. And so when I started getting the PhD, I first started thinking about doing it on credibility, but something didn't feel right. I then thought, okay, I'm going to do it on clarity. And once again, something didn't feel right. As soon as I said that the dissertation's focused on executive abundance, everything fell into place. So what's happening is I ended up switching my dissertation. A dissertation could be two types: research only, where you're conducting studies, either quantitative or qualitative, or other sort of research. Capstone. And I switched it from a research to a capstone. And what's coming out of the capstone not only will be a dissertation that I'm building on other people's stuff, and I want other people to build on mine, but what's coming out of the capstone will be a book on executive abundance, 2 chatbots, and some coursework so that the executive, now I have different coursework for the CEO, much smaller than the executive management team. And this will be how you deploy executive abundance. And the book is slated to come out just, a couple weeks after this show airs. So I'm excited about that.
I am too. I mean, it's a really wonderful way. And I'm just thinking about how you begin this journey to executive abundance, distinguishing between wants and needs. And I think as a consultant, or as an executive advisor, talk to hundreds of executives, help them with their issues. I think one of the greatest gifts that I bring, or that an effective consultant can bring, or that an HR leader can bring, is to help the client distinguish between his or her or their needs and his or her or their wants. And
Mm.
getting that distinct, if you can help people through that, then you're on the road to moving through other transitions. So it's a wonderful way to begin this. And how do we relate this executive abundance to the points of possibility? Is it the five
Yeah,
stakeholder groups, or
got it.
I think about that?
So what I look at is the 5 stakeholder groups is one of the axes, which I mentioned before. And then there are 4 engines, four components of the engine of executive abundance. Clearly, the first one is clarity, which is the CPOP. The second being credibility. The third and fourth are consistency and commitment, right? You have to do something consistency in and out, just having your integrity, external integrity, being aligned, right? You just have to have commitment or consistency to do it. And then the commitment is when stuff hits the wall, and it always hits the wall, having the commitment to do the right thing, having the commitment to do what the bigger picture vision, what the customer point of possibilities are in terms of where you're bringing your customers today and tomorrow, having the vision to do that and basically having an ongoing commitment. So those are the 4: clarity, credibility, consistency, and commitment.
Yeah, so true in terms of directing the significance of your life, but directing it. I was thinking about my 2021 book was Integrity by Design. I think my audience will know it. And so many similar concepts in terms
Mm,
of thinking about how things hang together. The engineers might call it structural integrity, but it is that, it's great if my words and my actions match, and even better if I can align my thoughts with those words and actions. Because, too often as an HR executive, I was scripting other executives about what to say and how. I'm not ever sure that all of them always bought the messages, but they were at least able to help create some alignment, but could have created better alignment, deeper alignment, maybe more abundance in the organization if all three things matched.
Perfect. Exactly.
So I love thinking about these points of possibility along with the five stakeholders. And if we dig into this topic of executive abundance, creating our impact, feeling the impact of those stakeholder groups, is there a way that this transcends to the broader organization? Beyond my peer, beyond my colleague, beyond my team, how does it begin to show up in an organization?
Typically, I've written articles in CEO magazine on how to deploy. What is the customer point of possibilities and how to actually deploy it. The Executive Abundance book the dissertation's the academic rigor behind it. The book that's being released, and at the moment, my fingers are crossed, the actual release date is May 7th. So hopefully it's like right around the corner. The book itself is the deployment vehicle. Like how do you actually tactically, how do you do it piece by piece? And it has to start tops down. It has to be the executive team. Typically the CEO has to say, hey, listen, I can simplify what happens when people explain who they are, when companies explain who they are. They want to add all these words. We serve these people, and we do this and we do that. And what the customer point of possibilities are at a much more macro level. Who is that client you're serving, and what is their primary pain point or pleasure point you're addressing? And if you can do that, and then what you do is you filter down. Think about the CPOP. If it is where one is executing on one's purpose, think of it as a playground. Now
Hmm.
imagine the playground for every one of the employees being something that they knew and they knew how to play it. Right? If you go to a regular playground today, if you're a parent and you bring your kids to a playground, you know what happens if you have 5-year-olds. If a 15-year-old goes to the playground, hey, that's against the rules. Don't play, right? You have rules. If it's rocks on the playground versus there are rules, right? And so imagine if every employee understood the playground they played in and how that relates to the bigger company's playground, and they were empowered to actually do what they do, and they enjoyed doing what they did. That changes everything.
It
And
changes the
so it
game.
it changes the game.
So true. Mitchell, before we wrap up, I have a couple more questions, but one that I don't want to miss is that you've got so much wisdom and practicality and ingenuity in your work. Where can our listeners learn more about your work, your new book on executive abundance? Where can they learn more about that and get in touch with you and your
So I
work?
have to tell you, I normally only give one URL. So this is gonna be slightly different because I've got that new book, and we're in this really interesting state. The best place to learn about me is at mitchelllevy.com. That's mitchellellevy.com. It'll have all the current programs, activities I'm working on. It even has a link to my calendar for those who want to book time. Now, to get
Nice.
the book, thank you. And normally I stop there. To get the book Executive Abundance, it will be pre-ordered and available on Amazon. And I've created a website called executiveabundance.com. So for those who sign up prior to the release date, there'll be special offers, special activities, special things that we deliver. And so that's at executiveabundance.com.
Well, that's great. And I'm going to sign up at Executive Abundance today because Mitchell has such a significant body of work that helps us, I think, bring more of who we are to what we do. And again, around directing the significance of our life, our purpose, and those with whom we work. Mitchell, as we just begin to wrap up, for our listeners who want to build their abundance, what would be one or two practical steps that you would recommend?
I'm going to go back to something we sort of discussed, but I'm going to do it much more tactically now. In doing the research, what I could tell you is that 90% of humans never actually understand their
Mm.
purpose. So they're born, live, and die without ever getting their purpose. And 98% don't have clarity. So if you look at, just Google me, look at my stuff. I do lots of work that's out there. And in the chatbot, it will help you get your CPOP because the CPOP is a compass. It's your compass. It's your personal compass. And if you have a compass, now you need a framework in which to operate. Now, there are many frameworks out there. I do have a credibility framework, so you can learn about that. And by the way, the credibility framework are the types of things that mom and grandma told you about.
Mhm.
How to be good to people, how to be a servant leader, how to do all the right things in your day-to-day life. One of many frameworks you can be deploying, but you need to deploy it with a vision. And if you actually had a compass, if you actually knew where you're executing on your purpose, it doesn't mean it doesn't change. And by the way, I'm being very clear. I'm not telling you you need to know your purpose. And that's that's this amorphous
That's
thing
different.
that people have. So what I want you to do is understand where you're executing on your purpose. And then every decision you make, is this the right job for me? Is this the right role inside this company? Is this the right thing I should do with my client? All of those decisions become very easy because you now have a playground in which you play in, and you have a compass to make decisions. Hey, is this really north or is this south? And if it's south, you say no.
Yes, and I think if you take those 4 Cs, that's so wonderful, Mitchell, is that for me, consistency, discipline. When I'm disciplined, it's merely a method, a formula to live out my purpose. And that's what the disciplined approach does, at least for me. It's been so wonderful to be in conversation with Mitchell Levy today. Visit him at mitchelllevy.com. Executive Abundance. Again, go to that website, get in early on Executive Abundance. Let's benefit from the wisdom that Mitchell brings to each and every one of us. So, again, thank you so much, Mitchell Levy.
Mike Horne, thank you so much for having me. What a fun conversation you and I had. I'm exceeded my expectations. So thank you.
Oh, that's great. And to all of our listeners, thank you for tuning into the People Dividend Podcast. Please drop a like, refer to your friends, your colleagues. And, if you've enjoyed this episode, subscribe because it's an important part of credibility, leadership, and executive abundance. So until the next time, see you. Thank you again.